Brittany Carter, and this paper is entitled Barbaric Convention, Police Brutality Enforced Upon Black Women. As China has stated earlier, Bell Hooks is the inspiration behind our panel, so I began my paper with a quote from her. Any society based on domination supports and condones violence. Bell Hooks. In my paper, I have discussed the origins of the police institution in America because I think it is imperative that the plight of Black women be recognized in the academy and in legal perspectives and in the news. The inauguration of the American Police Institution required both violence and intimidation. The violence and intimidation emerged through the paranoia of colonial America. Black women have been subjugated to endure brutality at the hands of white men in positions of authority. During the enslavement era, plantation owners, overseers, and slave patrollers is what we now know as the police force would whip Black women, beat them, rape them any way they could to assault them and allow them to feel inferior, and they did just that. Police brutality represents a magnified effort to enforce behavior modification. The behavior modification manifested in various ways for the slaves. They could not assemble in groups, learn to read and write, grow their own food, wear nice clothes, and use loud musical instruments to communicate with one another. White Southerners decided to premiere legislation that would enforce the social construction of inferiority. Slave patrols. Southern slave patrols, as I stated before, create now what we know as the police force. Shirley Joanne Yee, the author of The Origins of the Slave Patrol System, South Carolina, 1690 to 1810, discusses the origins of the slave patrols and how they function. She suggests that they were established to monitor individual neighborhoods or districts to protect the white elite. The patrols were used to make sure that the slaves remained on the plantation. South Carolina was the first American colony to establish a patrol system. Initially, South Carolina's slave patrol system was not passed until 1704. So for the sake of time, I'm going to talk about 3 isolated incidents of police brutality with Black women. I discussed 7 in my paper, but I want to be courteous of everyone's time. So, in Cleveland, Ohio, on November 13, 2014, Tanisha Anderson was a 37-year-old Black woman killed by the police. Her family called for medical assistance. She was disoriented and walked out of her house into the cold wearing only a nightgown. She had a history of mental health issues. When the police officers arrived, she was startled, but immediately, without talking to her, communicating with her, the police officer slammed Tanisha on the sidewalk. Her face hit the pavement. The officer also pressed his knee into her back while handcuffing her. Tanisha's brother, Joel Anderson, suggested that she called out for him and their mother. As she was screaming, a police officer used a judo takedown move, which made her land to the pavement. And then as they dragged her across the pavement, they put her in the back of the squad car, and they began to smother her so she couldn't talk or respond to anything. Joel and his mother asked the police officers to check on her condition. The officers falsely claimed that she was sleeping, simply sleeping. She never opened her eyes or spoke again, and the police never attempted to call any medical assistance following this incident. The actions of the police officers in this tragic scenario are very similar to the enslavement experience. Slave patrollers, also known as patty rollers, would always abuse their authority, sometimes by using excessive whipping tactics, or just a woman in particular, could be out in the fields or leaving the plantation. A woman could be leaving the plantation or out in the fields doing her work, and a slave patroller, the slaves also called them patty rollers, would just assault her. Just because if she spoke up, just sometimes her presence, they felt the need to assert their dominance at all times, at all costs. On July 27, 2014, Raynette Turner, 42-year-old single mother of 8, died in a Mount Vernon holding cell in New York City. She was arrested after allegedly shoplifting crab legs from a grocery store. There were no judges present that weekend to arraign her on these misdemeanor charges. The police officers opted to keep Raynette Turner in custody through the weekend. So on Sunday night, she was feeling ill and she was taken to the hospital. She also had a history of mental health issues, and she had high blood pressure. She was taken to the hospital and released, but during the arraignment processing, she vomited in a holding cell. She was taken back to a cell downstairs. Now, generally, when a citizen is being held in a holding cell, the officials are supposed to monitor the cells every 15 minutes. But according to the reports and the articles that I read, she was not seen for another hour. And then when her body was found, she was found dead in the cell at 2 p.m. So several questions could be posed here. Why was Raynette Turner not seen for an hour? Where is the surveillance footage in this jail? Has their surveillance footage been tampered with? And why is it that why are black women dying in police custody? Why is it that when they are in holding cells, no one is monitoring their actions, no one is taking into consideration their health issues, their mental health issues? This is a recurring theme. Also, what seems to be a trend too is that when they die in police custody, the autopsy reveals no injuries, nothing suspicious. So I would suggest that there needs to be more adequate accommodations for women who are vulnerable. If they do have a mental health issue, we need to be a little bit more gentle towards their needs. And if they are ill, we need to focus on getting them the misdemeanor charges resolved, get them arraigned, and get them the medical assistance that they need. Because the same way these police officers are enforcing this brutality and violence upon them is the same thing that the overseers and patty rollers did during the enslavement experience. There is no difference between the two. In the case, on July 10th, 2015, Brian Encina stopped Sandra Bland, 50 miles northwest of Houston, Texas, in Prairie View, Texas, for simply failing to signal. Officer Brian Encina told Sandra Bland to put her cigarette out. If you haven't seen the dash cam footage, he tells her to put her cigarette out. He yells at her, he threatens to tase her, so eventually he aggressively removes Sandra Bland from her car. And she's still arguing with him because she did not understand why she was being arrested. He tells her that you're violating a lawful order, and she was like, I will not comply because I have not committed a crime. So she was taken into custody, and she was found guilty for assaulting. She was arrested on a suspicion of assaulting a police officer. If you haven't seen the dash cam footage, I can explain to you that it's really impossible for her to be arrested on a suspicion of assaulting this man because she never touched this man. He touched her. And prior to her being taken into custody, she was slammed to the ground. She had bruises on her back. She was kicked and even hogtied before she ended up in jail. Sandra Bland was taken to Walker County Jail, where authorities said that she was found dead in her cell 3 days later, hanged with a trash bag. Sandra Bland's death has been ruled a suicide, although her family questioned the findings. The Bland family has also filed a wrongful death lawsuit in Houston federal court against Brian Encina. I found some statistics regarding Officer Brian Encina's work tactics. I was very concerned. So, Brian Encina stopped 501 women, 187 who were African Americans, so that came to a total of 37%. 178 were white, 36%. 88 were Latinas, 18%. 44 unknown race, that was 9%. 3 were Asian, and 1 person was Native American. It seems as though Brian Encina enforced the law under a specific gender paradigm. He seemed to be a little bit more lenient towards men when he would stop them for traffic violations or any minor violation of the law. On the day Brian Encina stopped Sandra Bland, he stopped 2 white men and 3 black women on the same road. He stopped the women for speeding, an expired driver's license, and a broken light, while he stopped the men for failing to display a driver's license and driving without license plates. It seems more severe to me than failing to signal. It is evident that Officer Brian Encina was overzealous with his work. In the presence of Sandra Bland, he became furious and very combative. It seems as though he was looking for a confrontation. And this parallels to the enslavement experience because, once more, slave patrollers and the overseers and plantation owners not only feared black men, but they feared black women. There is an assumption that black women are inherently aggressive, combative, and we do not entail all the values of womanhood. We're often accused of not even being regarded as women. And how Brian Encina treated Sandra Bland totally represented that. So, there was one book I thought was very important. Kristen Williams and William Wesley, authors of Our Enemies in Blue, Police and Power in America, they argue that the police culture and occupational norms support the use of unnecessary violence. They suggest that the culture of police brutality has been generalized with suspicion and intense demand for personal respect. That piece resonated with me because once more it made me think about the actions of Brian Encina and other police officers that are overzealous in the presence of black women. There is a need to remind her that, first of all, She does not have a superior social standing because she's a woman. Second of all, because she's black, she is automatically less than. So that suggests their need to assert this power. Same thing that the plantation owners did, whether it was by raping a black woman, beating her, taking her child away from her, whatever he could do to assert his authority over her is exactly what these police officers do in the presence of black women. And it is unfortunate that the news and the academy has not placed more emphasis on this subject. It was really hard for me to find literature that could support the issues going on with black women in the realm of police brutality. And another issue we are having here that I found in the reading, the reason police brutality is enforced and supported upon black women because people in powerful positions such as the mayor, the police chief, and other officials, they support these things. See, the police were originally established to protect the white elite. When you protect the white elite, it allows them to have the security and justify these actions of violence towards marginalized members of society that lack power. They need to be put in their place at all costs. And the way you do that is you kill them or you assault them. And that is the reason why mayors, city attorneys, district attorneys, everyone, police brutality seems to be a divisive issue in America, but truly it's not. It's very simple. This institution was created to preserve aggressive racism in America that takes us back to the days of slavery. So the only way we could resolve this issue is if we create a constitution for the police, the same way we have a United States Constitution for America. There needs to be a constitution and law ramifications for police officers. The real reason police officers are not held accountable is because there was no legal standpoint to hold them accountable for their actions. There's nothing enforced for them, so there needs to be a police constitution to resolve this issue. That's all.